As the 49ers and Trent Williams continue to try to thread the needle and look for a contract solution, maybe the Houston Texans, with their edge rusher, Danielle Hunter, have provided a model. Super unusual what we just saw from the Texans and Danielle Hunter, who has agreed to a contract extension of only 1 year, but with $40.1 million of fully guaranteed money. Again, when there's this much fully guaranteed money in the past in the NFL, it had been attached to several years of team control. The Texans willing to extend Danielle Hunter for only 1 year with $40 million plus fully guaranteed coming in. I'm going to break this down. Hopefully you learned something about the salary cap. Hopefully you learned something about where the 49ers stand with Trent Williams so far. And maybe I can illustrate how this can be a win-win for the 49ers, just like this might be a win-win for the Houston Texans. First things first, the edge rusher market is more valuable than the offensive tackle market. So I'm not proposing the same numbers for a Trent Williams deal, but I can show you guys exactly where the average per year for edge rushers stands at the very top. Micah Parsons leads the way at $46.5 million per year. So Danielle Hunter now with this new contract at $40.1 million per year ranks number 5 of all edge rushers, ahead of Myles Garrett at $40 million a year, ahead of Max Crosby, who signed last offseason at $35.5 million a year. You see some real inflation in this edge rusher market, by the way, because Nick Bosa, he was the highest paid defensive player of all time when he inked his deal back in 2023, right before the 49ers played the Steelers. That now ranks at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 7, $34 million a year for Nick Bosa. All right. Bosa, if he were an offensive lineman, would rank number 1 in the entire NFL, because look at the left tackle market. Rashawn Slater is number 1 at $28.5 million. Trent Williams is number 2 at $27.5 million. That was the extension signed in 2024. So one of these markets tops out at $46 million. The other one of these markets tops out almost $20 million behind it at $28.5 million. All right, what did the Vikings do? Because I see this as something that runs a little parallel to the Trent Williams situation. This right here is Danielle Hunter's contract prior to this extension. He was entering a lame duck year. Just like Trent Williams, 2026 was Danielle Hunter's final year under contract. Now, I get it that Trent Williams, did I not say Texans? I said Vikings. Sorry, Danielle Hunter used to be the Vikings. I said Vikings. I mean Texans. So we're just talking contracts here, though. So the numbers are what matter more. The Houston Texans gave Danielle Hunter this contract. Now, these are the numbers right here for Danielle Hunter prior to the extension. It is very similar to the Trent Williams deal, which I should get up on the screen here in just a second for you guys. But this is 2026 being the final year. Trent Williams, in essence, has 2026 plus void money, just like Danielle Hunter did before signing this contract. The one difference is that Danielle Hunter had all $22.6 million of base salary in 2026 already fully guaranteed. Trent Williams has nothing guaranteed, although his row for 2026 currently adds up to $33 million. Here is what the Texans did for Danielle Hunter to gain that 1 more year of team control. This is what the contract looks like now for Danielle Hunter. All of a sudden, you've got 2027 under team control, and all of a sudden, you've got a very, very large signing bonus proration moving into future years. So what Houston did, and I could reverse engineer the math on this to help it make sense. What Houston did is they took this very bottom number. I've got to delete the text title so you can see it. In the signing bonus proration, you see $6.14 million. That tells you that they gave a new signing bonus today with the contract. We can reverse calculate that because they could stretch that salary cap hit over 5 years. So we do 6.14 times 5. This means that the Texans just gave out a $30.7 million signing bonus for Danielle Hunter. So here's the old contract. Had a base salary of $22.6 million. They negotiated with Hunter to slash that base salary down from $22.6 million to a minimum of $1.3 million. That's the veteran minimum. In exchange, they gave him a $30.7 million signing bonus that pays out now. Stretch that signing bonus out over 5 years, all the way into void years until 2030, and then turned around, tacked on an extra year with a $30.2 million base salary and fully guaranteed it. So it comes out to 2 years and about $60 million for Danielle Hunter. In other words, that comes out to 2 years at a price that ranks under Nick Bosa at a number 8 for edge rushers. So 2 years, $30 million per year, fully guaranteed for Danielle Hunter, $40 million fully guaranteed at it. That's what shows up in this column. But in effect, it is the 8th ranked contract in all of football using some salary cap gymnastics. The Texans are able to fit this well within the hood of their salary cap. Look, the salary cap number only $16.1 million this season for Danielle Hunter. Does it increase? Of course it does. But can they further kick the can down the road in the future? Yes, they can, because they can slash the base salary into option bonus and further prorate things like an accordion in this prorated signing bonus column. So basically, you have given Danielle Hunter $40.1 million fully guaranteed on top of what he already had. He now has $60 million fully guaranteed over the next 2 years, yet you have kept his salary cap hit down at $16.1 million. I think the 49ers can do something with Trent Williams that is very similar, and it doesn't have to be at that scale because, as I showed you, the tackle contracts are smaller than the edge rusher contracts. As it stands right now, Trent Williams has $33 million scheduled to come to him this season. You can actually lower the salary cap hit of $39 million for this season while giving Trent Williams more guaranteed money. How do you do it? Well, Danielle Hunter offers a very interesting case study here because, yes, he's an older player. I get that he's not 38 years old, but he's entering his year 32 season. There are only 2 years of team control and 2 years of guaranteed money here just in case his career is over after 33. That's going to be it. Will you have dead money? Sure, but you've got to pay that dead money at some point anyway. The goal is to keep the near-term salary cap hits as low as possible. And for Trent Williams right now, $39 million is too high. You know what's too low for Trent Williams, though, is his fully guaranteed total for this 2026 season. And that is only zero. He doesn't have any fully guaranteed money. Obviously, no guarantees going into 2027. But in a way, that could be a problem for the 49ers as well, because you never want a good player to enter a lame duck year without a new contract. Now, the 49 things, the reason you're threading a needle here in the first place is because Trent Williams is going to be 38 years old in 2026. I believe July is his birthday. That means he's not going to play forever. That means you're already thinking of contingency plans moving forward. You're thinking about how the exit from Trent Williams and the entry to a new left tackle is going to work. Obviously, one of the potential pathways for the 49ers would be to move on from Trent Williams a year too early this offseason. If you think that, I brought up Rasheed Walker. If you think you've got a good opportunity, either via free agency where Walker will be available or through the trade market, which is really tough, although that's how they acquired Trent Williams back in 2020. If you think that you can move on to the future plan at left tackle without hurting yourself too much in the near term and give yourself an ability to improve overall as a roster through cap savings and draft picks, of course, you think about doing that this offseason. Maybe that is even the 49ers' leverage here as they try to negotiate something that works with Trent Williams. But when they signed the contract in 2024, they knew that this 2026 season was going to mark the lame duck year. They knew there was an understanding between both parties that a renegotiation would have to happen if Trent Williams were to be on the roster in 2026. I think that that's very similar to what Danielle Hunter signed with the Houston Texans. So that makes this all relevant to see now. This contract, adding $40 million of fully guaranteed money, using the prorated signing bonus as a tool. Remember, they took this number right here, $22.6 million. I'm circling it with my cursor. That was the base salary for Danielle Hunter. They slashed that base salary, just like Trent Williams' base salary is really high this year. They slashed the Danielle Hunter base salary to $1.3 million, to the veteran minimum. They gave him a new $30 million signing bonus. They stretched it out like an accordion over the life of the proration, the salary cap, 5 years. And then they guaranteed a base salary that can be converted to signing bonus next year while asserting that extra year of team control. I know this is complicated. I know there are a bunch of different variables, but that is the dance that the 49ers and Trent Williams are in right now. It's a team control dance. It's a guaranteed money dance. It's a, I just lost my mic dance. This thing keeps on falling down. I got it right now. It's a salary cap hit dance. I mean, for Trent Williams, the $39 million salary cap hit is too high this year, but I think they might be able to take a page out of the Danielle Hunter book to make something work, because I think a lot of the principles that the Houston Texans applied with the new contract for their edge rusher, who I would say is a top 10 edge rusher in this game still. And I think Trent Williams is definitely still a top 10 offensive tackle. I would say he's still a top 5 offensive tackle in this game. They made a contract for him that is reflective of about the number 8 edge rusher in all football. So the 49ers can make a contract for cheaper for Trent Williams, since offensive tackle makes less than edge rusher, that is reflective of a top 3 offensive tackle in football. Unless they've got something crazy up their sleeves and they truly want to flip the page into the future, which I'm not, I toss that around as a crazy pipe dream type of idea because there's so many different variables. Occam's razor applies to a situation like this. The simplest explanation is almost always the truest one. The simplest way forward for the 49ers is to find a contract that works with Trent Williams because of how well he's still playing, even at his advanced age. And I just outlined one of the ways that the 49ers could potentially do it. We're going to talk a little bit about Matt Eberflus right now, because there's a lot to talk about from the 49ers today. By the way, the 49ers have also hired a new assistant offensive line coach. 49ers hiring 2 coaches today, or at least news of 2 coach hirings coming today. They're expected to hire Kent State offensive line coach Angel Matute. A source tells CBS Sports. This is from Matt Zenitz. Matute is going to be the 49ers assistant offensive line coach. That position opened up because Cameron Clemens moved over to tight ends coach. That position had been vacated by Brian Fleury, who left to be the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. So Kent State offensive line coach Angel Matute, who saw some definite success with Kent State. He led them to cut their sack total from 43 to 27 from 2024 to 2025. And Kent State also averaged 20 more rushing yards per game under his tutelage. So now he earns the chance to be an NFL assistant offensive line coach under Chris Furster. The 49ers also hired an assistant head coach, and it's going to be the same role that we saw Gus Bradley occupy last year. And it is Matt Eberflus, a former head coach in the NFL with the Chicago Bears. That didn't work out, but Eberflus has been a very good defensive coordinator. Now he's going to be a defensive coordinator, or an assistant defensive head coach, helping the defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. Some people were wondering why Eberflus. Well, I think it's always a good idea to bring an experienced NFL mind into the building, especially if you can nab that mind for a non-play calling role. That's not often the easiest thing to do. But I think that there's commonality between Eberflus and a lot of the other 49ers brain trust when it comes to the coaching tree. Take a look at this. Everyone circles back to Monty Kiffin, the pioneer of the Tampa 2. And this gets even more crazy beyond this. But Monty Kiffin, the legendary defensive coordinator of those great Tampa Bay Buccaneers teams, who had a legendary player who's now the GM of the San Francisco 49ers, John Lynch. Kiffin is connected to Lynch, who played under him. Kiffin is connected to Raheem Morris, who was a low-level assistant under him. Kiffin is connected to Kyle Shanahan, who also was a low-level assistant in his defensive scheme. The Tampa 2 The Tampa 2, that's what Monty Kiffin pioneered in Tampa Bay. Kyle Shanahan actually started his NFL coaching career as a defensive quality control guy in Tampa Bay. Raheem Morris started as a defensive quality control guy in Tampa Bay. Shanahan's now the 49ers head coach. Of course, he's on the offensive side of the ball. Morris is now the 49ers defensive coordinator under Shanahan. He has worked on the offensive side of the ball under Shanahan. Both are tied to Monty Kiffin. Who else is tied to Monty Kiffin? Matt Eberflus, who was with the Dallas Cowboys, and he was a very good linebackers coach from 2011 to 2017. The defensive coordinator of Dallas then was Monty Kiffin. Monty Kiffin in Tampa Bay had Rod Marinelli as his defensive line coach. Rod Marinelli later was the D-line coach of the Cowboys at the same time as Matt Eberflus, who is the 49ers' new assistant head coach. He's going to be working on the defensive side of the ball alongside Raheem Morris. All under the watchful eye of the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, and of course, the general manager, John Lynch. So if you don't think football is a small world yet, just wait for this next part. We talk about Monty Kiffin and we talk about the big tree. We talk about the 49ers being a Seattle-style defense when this all started back in 2017 when Robert Saleh took over. Well, the Seattle-style defense comes from Gus Bradley, its first coordinator, who was in the position that Matt Eberflus was in, or is in now. He was in that position last year. The Seattle-style defense comes from Dan Quinn, who was Kyle Shanahan's old boss in Atlanta as the head coach there. The Seattle-style defense, before those two guys, comes from Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, of course, the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks from 2009 to just a couple of years ago until Mike McDonald took over for over a full decade. And a lot of what Pete Carroll picked up was when he was the defensive coordinator of the 49ers in the mid 1990s. And he eventually ported that to USC and then, of course, to the NFL again with the Seattle Seahawks. But Pete Carroll got his very start as a graduate assistant at Arkansas in 1977 with Monty Kiffin as his boss. So Monty Kiffin and the Tampa 2, four-man front, all this stuff connects with so many members of the 49ers Brain Trust, but there's also a connection with Pete Carroll, whose system the 49ers adopted when they first started this under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch back in 2017. That was with Robert Saleh. So if you didn't think football was a small world before, you probably will think that football is a small world now. Thanks to Mike for the graphic. That was a lot of fun. Maybe I can answer some of your questions. 49ers also signed Roman Sapolo earlier in this offseason, if we want to make this a true small world thing. That was a cool hiring for the 49ers. Roman Sapolo is the son of their four-time Super Bowl champion, Jesse Sapolo. He is going to be an offensive line coach, just assistant offensive line coach behind Chris Foerster, just like the hire from earlier today. So the 49ers, 2 new assistant offensive line coaches. If you want to see Roman Sapolo, that's him right now. I like that graphic. This one coming from the Fresno State days for Roman Sapolo. I'm actually flying to Fresno tomorrow. Maybe I'll see some of you guys in Fresno. I'm headed up to Shaver Lake for the weekend. So we're going to have a little bit of change of scenery before the tidal wave of free agency starts. So perfect timing to show you guys the Fresno State Bulldogs hat of Roman Sapolo, son of the legendary 49ers offensive lineman. Mike says that it's interesting that the 49ers are signing college O-line coaches. I do think that's interesting as well. Behind Chris Foerster, obviously, who's a pro guy through and through. So these are assistant O-line coaches, but could be something to ask Kyle Shanahan about. Maybe there's something in the college game that the 49ers have taken a liking to, and they want to apply to how they're operating on the offensive side of the ball. All right, the potential Trent Williams contract solution. If you guys have any questions about how this backloading works, how some of these contracts work, then shoot them my way. I think it's probably worth it to get Trent Williams' actual contract up on the screen, so we can maybe illustrate how this can work for the 49ers and Trent Williams moving forward. So I'm getting it up right now. Toss it up there, and I'll have it in a second. This takes a lot of work sometimes. It's a lot of behind the scenes work occasionally to be able to toss this up onto the screen and have it look nice and clean, but I've gotten the work done. Here you go. So as this should look familiar because we just looked at Danielle Hunter's deal. But in 2026, as you can see, the third row down there, and I could even take the text title off so you could see it a little bit more easily. $22.1 million or $2 million in base salary for Trent Williams. It's a little bit more complex because he's already has this prorated signing bonus. And then he's got the $10 million option bonus, which essentially is just a trigger to get this done earlier versus 2024, which didn't have the option bonus kicking in within the course of the next month. But that's going to be $10 million in compensation, which is prorated over 4 seasons. If you add that to the $22.2 million and then add some of the roster bonus money and the workout bonus money, it comes out to $33 million. None of it guaranteed for Trent Williams in this 2026 season. Yet the cap number is $39 million. So to lower that cap number, the best way to do it is to slash the base salary. And you could probably even slash the option bonus, renegotiate the entire deal, find a way to give Trent Williams a nice, healthy, guaranteed lump sum now, stretch that out even more aggressively against the salary cap, and then toss some guarantees just like the Texans did for Danielle Hunter into that 2027 season. So different positions, different ages, obviously, Trent being a little bit older, but similar solutions as far as contracts that can work for a team and for a player who may not want a team to have all too many years of team control. Player wants to still maintain his leverage in case, like Trent, if he wants to play until age 40, maybe he only wants that team control to last through age 39. So he could renegotiate again at age 40 with a better leverage point, right? And you never know with Trent because this is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's one of the greatest offensive linemen that we've ever seen. So I would say never as far as how long is this guy going to play, because it still obviously is a very, very high level. And the trick is finding a path, if you're the 49ers, that protects the team while also fairly compensating Trent Williams. And obviously, I think he wants that path as well. Sometimes it could be really tricky to reach. Sometimes it leads to a little bit of a standoff, but that is where the 49ers and Trent Williams are at this very moment. All right, time to answer some of your questions. Somebody said, was Trent going to take that bonus and hold out? I mean, I don't think the 49ers want this to get to the bonus, like the trigger date of the bonus, just to help people understand what's going on here. You've got the $22 million base salary. That is not going to start paying out until the regular season. That's paid out 22.2 divided by 17 games. The option bonus, which is 2.5 times 4, the 10 million right here, that pays out. That's due at some point in the next month. I don't think that the 49ers want to get to the bonus right here without full resolution for Trent Williams heading into 2026. They don't want to pay him 10 million and then have Trent hold out for even more before the start of the season. I think that the 49ers realize that that this bonus will trigger movement from them. And I think but both sides are going to want some kind of resolution before this is set to hit. But the 49ers especially, they want to know that Trent Williams is going to be willing to play at the number that they propose, since that number is fungible, given the fact that there aren't guarantees. They would like to know sooner rather than later. They want to get this negotiation done before it leads to a holdout this time. That's my read on the situation contractually. Now, again, it's further complicated by the fact that he's going to be 38 years old. Is it further complicated by the fact that Rasheed Walker is going to be available in free agency? I don't know. But this is an unusual situation. It's one that the 49ers have essentially worked through before, but now we're 2 years further down the road. Salary cap situation probably even more crowded than what is then. And they've got to figure something out. Trent has considerable leverage. The 49ers might use some free agency counter leverage in this situation. So I don't think that they want to get to a point, though, where they pay out $10 million to Trent Williams with the bonus and then have him hold out on top of that. I do think it's in the 49ers' best interest to have resolution far before then. Don't let that bonus trigger without resolution. And I think the 49ers are going to do their best to make sure it doesn't reach that point. Does Raheem Morris want to bolster that secondary? Will he bring in some former Falcons? It's a good question. You know, the first former Falcon I think of, because he's going to be a free agent this year, is Caden Ellis, the linebacker. I know he's not in the secondary, but that's somebody that I think about because I wonder what Raheem Morris thinks of the 49ers linebackers beyond Fred Warner. We know that Warner's a future Hall of Famer. We know he's in the prime of his career, despite the fact he's coming off the big injury. Warner is Warner, but what do the 49ers do past that? And what does somebody like Raheem Morris think of the talent beyond Fred on this roster? You know, the 49ers have already brought over a Falcon and Jerry Gray, their new defensive backs coach. So they're hiring these college assistant D-line or O-line coaches. Just went over two of those guys today. They brought in a new DB coach. They let Daniel Bullocks leave to the Green Bay Packers. And now Jerry Gray, the longtime DB and DB coach, overlapped with John Lynch as a player. Ooh, by the way, there's another connection. Jerry Gray's, okay, this is cool. Sometimes I just realize stuff, and this is a really, really good question from Sac Francisco. I love that. Love that handle. Don't know your real name, but I do know your YouTube handle, and it's a good one. But Jerry Gray, the 49ers' new DB coach, finished his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1992. So he overlapped with John Lynch in 1992 with Tampa Bay. Now, he didn't overlap with Monty Kiffin because Monty Kiffin didn't come until 1996. Still, though, he overlapped with Lynch, and Lynch overlapped as a player, obviously, with Monty Kiffin, and then that's how everybody's connected on this 49ers defense. I want to see where Jerry Gray played earlier in his career. Maybe there were some overlap. Oh, wait. Buffalo Bills linebackers coach for Monty Kiffin in 84 and 85. Now, Jerry Gray played for the Rams, the Oilers, and the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I don't think there was any overlap with Monty Kiffin. That would have been really cool had there been overlap there. But anyway, Jerry Gray, UDB coach, coming over from Atlanta with Raheem Morris, and he too has a tie to John Lynch. The insurance policy for Bosa's contract, does that cost for the insurance premium count against the cap? No, what the insurance policy does is it saves you salary cap space. It's insurance against the salary cap. So it adds something like, I think for Nick Bosa and that injury, it added somewhere between 7 and 10 million, if I remember correctly, of 2026 salary cap space for the 49ers. It'll all be credited and adjusted for the NFL when they settle the 49ers' final adjusted salary cap. This is a good question. Trent did suffer the first hamstring pull of his career. Is this a concern moving forward since he's turning 38? I mean, the guy's going to be 38. Of course it's a concern moving forward, right? At this point, you have to protect yourself if you're the 49ers. If you're Trent, you want to maximize your money in the NFL. It's an old-fashioned negotiation. Both sides have different motives, different goals, and both sides want to make sure that they reach an agreement that makes each side happy. I mean, it's tough business, especially given some of the parameters here. And what you bring up is a very fair point. When he was trying to chase down the pick six, what was that? TJ Edwards on the pick six against the Chicago Bears on that very first play. Trent Williams strained his hamstring, and that lingered with him for the rest of the season. He was never 100% beyond that. And he said it was the first hamstring injury of his NFL career. Maybe that's father time knocking. Maybe it was a fluke one off. Hard to tell definitively one way or the other, especially here from the outside. But the truth of the matter is that he will be 38 years old this season. Do I like Cam Jordan for a low price? I know that the Saints are going to release him. I'm not in the mode right now of thinking about low-priced veteran plug-ins yet. I'll think about that like a week into free agency. I think that the 49ers, first, they got to take their big swings, go after all the receivers they're going to go after, maybe go after, who knows, maybe they go after a corner, maybe they go after a safety, talk about the defensive linemen. I think they've got to take their big swings, and then they've got to look at themselves in the mirror and say, where are we at after spending the majority of our salary cap allowance this year? How does this stack up entering the draft? Do we need to plug any holes with lower priced vets like a Cam Jordan, like a Calais Campbell if he decides to play again in 2026? He's the ageless one, right? So I don't think I'm ready to start talking about guys for a low price yet, because I think you do your bigger shopping first. Do I think the 49ers should not release Brandon Aiyuk and make him play for the 49ers because he's under contract? I don't know the full details of this situation, to be 100% honest. 49ers may not know the full details. I would hope they know a little bit more than me. But, I don't know the exact status of his knee. I know that there was an issue with missed rehab sessions and stuff that allowed the 49ers to void his contract without him fighting it at the start of this 2025 season that just passed. I don't know what his playability is like moving forward. With all this fog of war, I'm just somebody covering the team from the outside. It's really hard for me to illustrate the 49ers' correct path moving forward. But I can tell you what they can do, their options. One would be to play absolute hardball and to not release him and to not pay him until he showed up. And then he could show up, but at that point, Brandon Aiyuk could just call your bluff. He could show up and you probably don't want him on the team anymore. So you'd have to release him anyway. So I think that the 49ers, maybe in an eagerness to just close the book on this, right? Just to move forward, might just release him. That I feel that they at this position should feel relatively fortunate that Brandon Aiyuk was willing to give back the guarantees for 2026. It could have been a whole lot worse. It could have been a situation where Brandon Aiyuk got hurt, didn't return in 2026, but did go through his rehab, went by the book on everything, wasn't able to come back in 2026, and the 49ers owed the fully guaranteed money for 2026. And that could have really, really crippled this team. It could have prevented them from going out and getting some real help at wide receiver or wherever else they might decide to spend here over the course of the next week. That wouldn't have been good. So I think at this point, you consider it a big break if you're the 49ers that you're able to get it away from the contract. And, if there is a reason, if the front office sees a reason to set some kind of standard moving forward, set a precedent, like you better not mess with us or we'll hold you hostage, then maybe they do that, but it just doesn't seem like they're going to do that. They might have a little bit more information than we do regarding the state of Brandon Aiyuk right now and where that might head, both mentally and physically, and they may just want to cut responsibility. Because as long as he's on your roster, if you decide to continue employing him, even if he's on the left squad list, you also, team reputation-wise, at least reputation-wise, I mean, this could extend into the legal sphere too, but there's a responsibility for your employees, right? So he would still be an employee of the 49ers. And if the guy is not around, if he's not reporting, if the only time that you see him is him speeding by Levi's Stadium, I'm not sure that you want that person to be an employee of the firm for much longer. And the first feasible time for the 49ers to cut Brandon Aiyuk is coming up next week. It's on March 11th. Because finally then they can designate him for a post-June 1st release. They can push back a lot of the dead money into 2027. And they can open up near-term salary cap space with a Brandon Aiyuk maneuver. And I think that the 49ers are probably eager to do that, just given all the risks that keeping Brandon Aiyuk would entail. All right, guys, I have an early flight tomorrow morning. Busy day coming up tomorrow morning. Hope you guys enjoyed the Trent Williams contract discussion. Maybe a little bit of an idea based on what Danielle Hunter got from the Houston Texans. Everybody, thanks for watching, and hit that subscribe button. I see people talking Romeo Doubs. You can comment who you think the next 49ers receiver signing is going to be. We will talk to you very soon.